Hello and welcome to another episode of the SharTech podcast, InfoSec with the Three Hacketeers. And today we have myself, Josh, Jose, and Crane. And today we're going to be talking about a virtual CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, and the benefits of having one. And we'll jump right into it. So, what is a vCISO? Is it an external expert contracted by your organization to provide CISO services? So what are CISO services? They include designing, overseeing, and managing your organization's overall security strategy. So this is a strategy-based role, a chief-level-based role that can be virtualized or outsourced. Josh, you kind of want to jump in and talk more nitty-gritty about what a CISO does and some of the major advantages of utilizing vCISOs.
My house just got invaded by tiny gremlins. I don't know if you guys can hear
it. We can't see it. We can't hear it either.
You can't see it. You're going to hear it in a minute here. Yeah, so like you said, the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, it's a C-suite position. Different companies put it at different levels in the organization, but it's having somebody who's responsible for overseeing the security of your organization, your IT security. A lot of times compliance and governance falls into this. It lets you make decision-informed, or it lets you make risk-informed decisions. And we talk about risk a lot on this podcast. I hope that everyone is talking about risk a lot in their businesses. That's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to improve outcomes, standardize things. Something that I was thinking of the last week. I was working with some businesses where some people were trying to get some vendors, looking at some third parties. A couple of people had incidents that happened that they weren't really managing. And I was thinking, wow, if these people had a CISO, even a vCISO, someone part-time working for them, they would have someone telling them that they have a big problem. And they're operating in ignorance because you don't know what you don't know. You're not in the business of security. You're in the business of whatever your business is in. You got to have somebody who's an expert. And if you're a smaller, medium business, SMB, like we talk about all the time, you're probably not in a position that you want to hire a full-time, 40-hour-a-week, mid-six-figure compensation C-suite executive. And that's where the benefit of the vCISO comes in. Kick it back over to Jose and Crane to chime in on that.
So, as Josh stated, it's a position it's necessity in this day and age to have a CISO. A vCISO is the cheaper route, as Josh just mentioned as well. If you're talking about our particular situation, we are, you're not just getting one person, you're getting multiple people to do the job. And so the resources are there, the ability to be available. I know a lot of people, I've read in some articles that, a lot of people worry that, hey, will they be available when we need them type situation. And, when you're looking at us for sure, and I'm sure there's other companies like us that provide more than just one person to do the job. So yeah, I mean, in this day and age, it's the way to go because you're saving money, but you're still getting the need taken care of within the organization's security landscape. And there's just a lot of flexibility involved with it because if for some reason, let's just say the person isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, you can move on, and find somebody else, find another vCISO. So there's flexibility in the way that it works when you're trying to when you're trying to accomplish something at the business when it comes to the security side of things. The other thing about a vCISO is that the position isn't just the security side, but they're kind of the bridge between security and IT, especially in this day and age. Like, it's not there's no real I mean, there's barriers, but there's really not, because you're in charge of both, basically. And you're in charge of putting together the teams to accomplish that as well. And so, and that's another thing to bring up. There's vCISO, and then obviously, you need management side of things to make things come to fruition. So the company that you're working with is looking for a vCISO, but doesn't have somebody to manage the process, like the data process and the policy process and security protocol process, then you're going to want to talk to them about those positions as well, because it's not just the vCISO that does the job. The vCISO is the overseer, and so you're going to need more people underneath the vCISO to do and complete what you're trying to accomplish.
And a couple points to add here. When it comes to what you get with a vCISO, perspective of a virtualized CISO versus an internal CISO. I don't mean to be picking on an internal CISO. I think many companies get to a certain level and require in-house someone full-time. Like, this is not a knock on any of that, right?
It's a non-negotiable. If your company is big enough, you need somebody there 24/7 that can be the go-to to get to the board members, to get to the management side of things, to be the bridge between all of the different systems in place that need to be secured.
Yeah. But even on that, where you are at the point where you have a full-time CISO, you still might want a vCISO as a not backup, but to support your CISO and to provide outside perspective, outside expertise. I know that's exactly where Sid's going with this. Yes, you have a CISO, they know your business inside and out, but they also can get into not a rut or not groupthink, but like a set way of doing things. And having an outside person come in and give their expertise can kind of break you free of the molds, prevent blind spots, or even just like no one person. We're talking so much about how you need a team. One person doesn't know everything. Oh. And having somebody that they can go to when they have questions is worth its weight in gold. I'll let Sid go back to what he wanted to say.
No, it's all good. I mean, I'll conclude what you're saying, Josh, with the idea that, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with the team, right? And that's where having, as you said, having multiple experts allows not just one voice in the room, not just one way of thinking, not one set of eyes, right? Like, just speaking freely for everybody listening, the three of us, we have the same goals in mind, but we argue, right? So it's like, that's just what happens, because, when you have the goal and we all have different ideas, different perspectives, different ways of getting things done, different ways of executing, whatever it might be, that's what you want. That's how you go far, right? Whereas, by all means, if you want to go fast, you go alone. And it's that 100% that idea that when you have multiple heads, when you have multiple brains, when you have multiple sets of eyes on things, you get all the perspective that you need, that you would require to make the best possible decision. And that's ultimately where I was going with it, Josh.
Yeah, no, that's, you're absolutely right. And, that's a whole, perspective and expertise. But also, if you don't have a CISO, there's another thing to consider. If you're looking, do I hire somebody or do I go with this vCISO route? You're talking about going fast. It's actually faster a lot of times to bring in a vCISO and bring them up to speed and get them spinning and working on like a project than to hire someone. It usually takes 6 months to a year for a new hire CISO to learn the business, learn what's there, do their groundwork, get brought up to speed onboarding before they're really hitting their stride. And with a vCISO, especially if it's a project based or a little more contained or a smaller business, you can speed that up considerably.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go back to what I was talking about in reference to, it takes a multitude of personnel to bring, everything to fruition when it comes to security and IT alignment, business alignment, and all those things. You got to ensure that not only do you have that vCISO or CISO internally, but you need to have people that, business process owners, people that align security with business initiatives. You got to make sure that that vCISO has a very good rapport with the management, the board of directors, the people beneath them as well, so that you can get things done. Obviously, senior, if you can't speak to senior management, and you can't give them a reason why they need to do something, or a good reason, which is usually something that has to do with the business operation, then that's something you gotta take into account as well. But going back to what Josh and Sid were saying, it is it's imperative. It is a senior executive level position that needs to be filled, because it's the way to get things done when it comes to security and IT and business alignment. There's no other way around it.
Well, that's the whole idea, is that
You have
get the
steering
CISO in.
committees. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, you're talking about all the people involved. Some of those people might be, in-house to the organization, or they might be other third parties. You think about a small business, they might have an MSP that provides their IT. Then they have some in-house people doing some billing, some in-house processes. You need someone who can oversee all the moving pieces, connect all the dots, and provide to the executive committee, steering committee, board, whatever they go by, the advice the knowledge that they lack.
Yep.
Exactly. Because, and not everyone needs to be in-house is all I'm saying, but the CISO and a vCISO is very helpful because they have so much experience in different industries. They've seen so many problems that they can see other ways of doing things that an in-house CISO might not, because they're locked into that company, that industry. And you get those different perspectives.
Yeah. And if you're working with a company like ours, sorry there, but if you're working with SureTech, not only do you have a vCISO, but you have a CIO as well. You're going to have people that have experience on both sides of the spectrum, not just procedurally, which is what you would say a CI or CISO does. They're more of the regulatory side of things, whereas the CIO is more of the IT business alignment side of things. So, with somebody or a company like ours, you're going to get a multitude, a vast array of expertise.
Yeah, and some of that goes into what authority are you giving to somebody? If you bring somebody in as a virtual CIO and telling them, hey, I want you to run my entire IT system, I want you to oversee the security of it and bring the business alignment. You're right. You're going to have your CIO, CISO, IT and security going to the CISO, going up to the CIO. Absolutely, and that's something that some organizations might want to consider. The advantage here really is, though, in addition to the expertise, optimization perspective, though, is that flexibility that we were talking about, and the cost. You're going to pay a vCISO to come in, not full time, but just to oversee things, compared to full time. Much less expensive, much more flexible. And like Jose was saying, if you hire a CISO, you go through all the work, you hire somebody, and then it doesn't work out. It's a lot of time, It's a lot of money, and you got to go hire somebody else. You get a vCISO, you're just gonna be a conversation like we're having now. You want to make sure you have good rapport with them, that you like them. Maybe you like us, maybe you don't like us. You move on. You say, oh, this isn't working. We're gonna not extend the contract, and you get a different person. So that's a little level of flexibility, and it really the decision that gets made needs to be sized to your individual organization, what route you're going. Obviously, we're talking a lot about this because we think that vCISOs are important. We think it's a good way to go for a lot of businesses, especially those who aren't ready, whether from money or size, to bring someone on full time, or you have brought on someone full time and you want them to get a little leg up. We think a vCISO is a great way.
Josh, talk about, I want you to keep running with that. Something I wanted to bump in here. The idea that there's so many businesses out there, especially in the small to mid-sized world, that don't want to hire somebody full-time. At the same time, they have people within the organization wearing multiple hats, right? And they say, okay, I can probably take the role of a CISO and divide it amongst a couple people. What would you say to them? Because at the same time, what I would recommend in that situation is, even if you wanted to do that, get someone like us, a vCISO, to help guide those three people, right? Because those three people might be able to do the tasks, but might not have the expertise to actually know where to start, how to do certain things, right? Just getting that overseer of those three people via a vCISO, if you want to kind of take and run with that.
Yeah, if I understand the kind of scenario you're putting out, I would say in general, in small businesses, everyone wears many hats. Generally, when it comes to information security, cybersecurity, it's very specialized skill set. It's not niche, but it's specialized. And somebody isn't going to do a good job if they're wearing multiple hats. And Jose can go on this for all day probably. They usually give it to the IT guy. Oh, you're the IT guy. You're also the security guy now. And the problem is those two positions, they're not in opposition. They're not fighting, but they should be separate individuals, because the IT guy, yeah, they don't align. Not that they're in competition or conflict, but they don't align.
It's a sorry, Josh.
No, go ahead. I knew you were going to get triggered by it.
No, I mean, the separation needs to be there, because you can't, especially if you're working with outsiders or outside third parties. So if you have an MSP, it's human nature to come in. Let's just say you're going into a new company, you're doing an audit, you're looking at things, you're giving recommendations on what they need to change, what they need to, what they need to do in your focus and what you're seeing in order to align with your business necessities. And you don't necessarily, when you're an MSP, you don't necessarily, security is there, you're thinking about it, but you're thinking about the client and them being happy. And sometimes security and IT, the more security, the less happy they are. And so that's the major difference that I see. So you're going in, you're trying to make a client happy, and you want them to work as smooth as possible, and you want them to do all the things they're used to doing without a hitch. However, when we've walked into many different situations, but for instance, passwords, just something as minimal as passwords. You walk into this office, they're all using the same password, and you go up to them and you say, hey, why are you using that same password everywhere? That's not secure. And they look at you and they're like, well, we move fast and we like to work fast, and we don't want anybody having any issues logging in when they need to get in and do something. And you're thinking to yourself, well, in your mind as an IT guy, you're like, well, that still doesn't give me a good reason. However, when you start to talk where you're telling them, hey man, like you probably should have a better password and different passwords on different computers for different systems, you don't really get to that because they're happy the way they are. And as long as you have a firewall and you have all these other things in place, antivirus, you're thinking to yourself, well, this aligns, like this is the way they work. And, we're not going to go down this road. We can continually tell them, hey, you probably should change your password, but they're still, they want to stay, you want them to stay happy. So having a security side of things, a person that does that, a CISO, vCISO, that comes in separate from you, that looks at it differently, that gets a different, that takes a different approach, and they understand they're going to because they're more on their security. Then they're going to take that information and probably take it more seriously. Whereas when you're getting it from your IT guy, it's like, oh, Jose, like, we don't really want to change those passwords. We want to keep working fast. We want to keep working efficiently. And we don't want to, we don't want to take time to do that. So let's just keep moving along and go buy us some computers and go get us another server and make us faster. Whereas a security guy can come in and say, hey, this is not, let's just say a medical situation, a medical office. This isn't a HIPAA, this isn't HIPAA satisfactory. You can't use the same passwords, and we need to change these passwords in order to facilitate being secure. And so coming from somebody that's security based, they're going to probably listen to it a lot more, less reluctantly, I should say. Whereas an IT guy, they're kind of like, well, we just want to get moving, Jose. Let's just get these things done, and we'll talk about that later. And so you kick it down the curb. But yeah, I mean, there's got to be two different people that do the different jobs, because one person can't possibly the other thing is just the multitude of everything, like just the size of that job. Like, you can't possibly do security and IT. It's impossible. You got to have two different people, two different teams doing that, because it's impossible. You can't be an IT person and you can't be a security person at the same time. You can think about it, and you can try to align some of those, like antivirus. Antivirus is easy. Like, you install antivirus. Okay, we're good. Like, we're not going to get viruses. Or you put a spam filter out there. That's great. You can do those things as an IT person and feel good about it, but you're not really looking at the granular security configurations. You're not looking at policies. You're not looking at procedures. You're not looking at any of that stuff. You're just trying to keep them working and keep them happy, and putting the necessity security in place.
And even then, that security gets dictated by the client,
right?
More so than by IT.
That's
I think
exactly
that's
right.
it. To go back to what prompted this conversation, I think that's the thing. What Jose is saying, the CISO, vCISO, your security person, they have unique knowledge and unique viewpoints that these other people aren't going to have. We talk about that expertise. We go all the way back to the expertise the vCISO gives you. You can have very, very smart people in your company, but they're not going to be able to do a vCISO's job and their job. They can't be good at both. And if they are, you're not paying them enough. That's what I would say. You need somebody to tell you the things that you don't know.
Yep. And you need somebody to, I mean, I hate to keep going back to this, but you need somebody to align security, business, and IT together. Like, those things all have an operational, business operations as well. You got to put those in line. As everything has to work together, and a vCISO gives you the ability to do that, because they're the tributary that goes back and forth between the operation managers, the steering committees, the boards, and upper management.
Yeah, we talk a lot about compliance, and obviously a lot of vCISO work is compliance. But some of that compliance, if you're a healthcare thing, you got HIPAA. Sometimes compliance is just being compliant with corporate, your organization's rules. And if you don't have somebody creating those rules, overseeing those rules, you end up with a scenario where a manager can not go rogue, but there's nothing preventing them from calling the IT people and saying, I need you to give me access to XYZ system. I don't have access. I need access. The IT says, oh, we were setting this up. You weren't listed as an authorized person. And they're like, listen, I'm the manager. I'm the client. Give me access. IT said IT's job is to give people who need access. So IT says, okay, you get access. CISO says, is going to put in something that says, well, before IT can give access, it can't be the person requesting access authorizes the access. It's got to be a different person. So if that person asks for access, they need to go to another person. That person approves it. That approving person then goes to IT and says, give this person access. That's security versus IT.
Yep. Putting in security programs that help keep that alignment in check when it comes to security and IT and the user or the management trying to get the job done.
Yeah, and that was a real simple example. Exactly.
Brakes. Yeah.
Or at least, tell you where the ramp is, right? That person, I need access to this thing. And IT says, well, I can't give it to you. You got to talk to so-and-so. And then, that's how I get access. I go talk to so-and-so. So it's not necessarily like throwing sand in the wheels, but it is putting you on a clear path. We talk a lot about organizational maturity. Yeah. vCISO, huge step up in organizational maturity, because instead of everything being a unique one-off, there's going to be some standardization. There's going to be some processes. There's going to be some a lot more foresight. A lot of what CISOs are doing are providing foresight for what happens when a disaster happens. How do we prevent the disaster from happening in the first place? And that's just why it doesn't work to have other people who aren't experts in this filling it in.
Yep.
I see all the time, I get dragged into things, and I think if only we had planned for this 6 months ago, we wouldn't have this problem. I get dragged in. Oh, the CEO's email was hacked and they're sending spam messages trying to phish all of our vendors. Well, if you had planned for that 9 months ago, this problem wouldn't exist. Like literally the problem wouldn't exist. Or we'd at least have a plan. Now we're running around trying to figure out afterwards what we're going to do. Someone I was talking to today was concerned about what happens if a laptop gets stolen. How do I secure that information? So you got to plan ahead that things are either encrypted, you have some kind of remote management, remote wipe system, kill switch, or that laptop's never going to have anything valuable on it and it's not going to matter. Those are just 4 things I came up with off the top of my head just now. All that planning has to happen before. You call me, laptop's been stolen, what can I do? Pray. Because you didn't plan for it. You didn't want to spend the money on a CISO, on a vCISO. Because it's not cheap. It's way cheaper than any of these things actually impacting your business. But that's what it is. It's you're bringing in an expert who knows what you don't know to take care of what you don't know, to align your organization, your IT, your processes, your risk. Because if you tell Jim in accounting, you're my new vCISO, do a risk assessment, he's gonna be like, well, I know finance risk, but I don't know IT risk, and he's not gonna be able to do it.
Nope.
So you get that risk, make risk-informed decisions, make planning, you align all these things, and now it's like putting shocks on a car. When you hit a pothole, you're not getting flung out of your seat. you've got shock absorbers and you're like, oh, I hit a bump.
Except in Pittsburgh. You could have
Well, we're up here.
massive shock absorbers, and if you hit a pothole here, you're still gonna feel it.
Well, I knocked my car out of alignment recently with a pothole up here in Connecticut. So
there you go.
It was filled with water. I couldn't see it.
What's going on with that infrastructure?
Well, they're fixing some of it, and there's a bridge that got closed recently. They went and inspected it.
It's funny because I was thinking bridges in my head. When you said bridge, I was thinking bridges.
They caught it before it made news for collapsing and killing anybody. But the road's closed until they get in and rebuild the bridge.
Who's in charge of those things? Jeez, man.
That was that was local. That one was town politics.
All right, we're getting off bridges now.
We're getting off bridges, but don't have a pothole so big it swallows up your entire car.
I got to take a picture of this one pothole I drive by every day. You'll see it.
Potholes.
Okay.
What it's like to not have a vCISO. Potholes. Potholes everywhere.
Yep. Potholes.
I mean, just not to reopen the can of worms. We talk about this all the time. It's about the organization maturing, and a mature organization is a resilient organization. We see this. You go on Google and Google what happens to a company after a breach or a major cyber incident. And small and medium businesses, at a shockingly high percentage, they go out of business. They cease to exist. Even large businesses, sometimes it can take them a long time to recover.
Oh, reputational wise, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if LastPass is ever going to.
They still email me like once a week.
I know, but I've read a number of articles where they've lost a tremendous amount of client base.
Yeah.
In fact, the password, and forgive me, I'm drawing a blank right now, but all those password keepers have seen a drop off after that because, everybody's skeptical of it now. They get one password, they see all your passwords. Smart.
Yeah. Might be a good solution for some organizations. Other organizations, not so much. If you had a vCISO, they could tell you if it was the right or wrong call for your business.
That's right. They would analyze and make they'd have matrices and all kinds of stuff that they'd review before you'd go down any path, because they review every path depending on what you're trying to do. That's what a CISO does. I mean, they will look over the business initiative and whatever you're trying to accomplish. And if it doesn't align security wise, if it's too risk averse, then they're probably going to recommend not doing it or doing something else. Just depends.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that the CISO is going to give you, or the vCISO is it's still at the end of the day, it's still your organization. You do what you want to do. The advantage of the vCISO, especially a vCISO, because they're external to your organization, there's independence. So they can tell you, hey, this is what you want to do. This is the risk if you go down this route. This is why we think it's a bad idea. This is why we think it's bad security. This is why we think it's not good. And you say, I want to do it anyway. It's like, great. Sign here that I told you it was a bad idea and you want to do it anyway. And you go off and you do it. When somebody is inside the organization, it is very difficult, especially for small and medium businesses, to maintain that independence. It's very easy to become, we're doing X, Y, and Z, go to the CISO and tell him to sign off on it. And he's like, whoa, hold on. I thought we were going to do these other things. And they say, well, too bad.
Or you have a strong personality that's been around for a long time in the organization that steers the way the boat goes.
Yeah, that's why IT, except for a CIO, Chief Information Officer, or maybe a CTO, a Chief Technology Officer. Those are really the only two executive level IT positions. That's why they have the CISO position now. It's executive level. You're really only answering to the CEO, a steering committee, a board. I mean, that's whatever that's called in your business. That's who should be going and getting the CISO, because the CISO is going to say things that your frontline people don't like. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've been doing it this way for 20 years. Why do I have to change now? Because the CISO said so.
That's right.
Because the executive committee said so.
Because the CEO said so.
Because the CEO said so.
Because that's where the CISO gets his information, or gets his directive from.
Yeah, that's where the authority comes from.
If the directive from the board and the CEOs and the presidents come down to the vCISO and they tell him to do something or align some business need with, some other IT configuration, that's who runs that whole thing.
Yeah, so I know we're running long here. I'll wrap it up, but that's even in an organization where the CISO is internal, the idea of that independence is still there. The CEO says, I want X, Y, and Z. CISO says that's a bad idea. The CISO isn't the implementer, right? The CEO is going to go to other people and get things implemented. And that's so important that CISO be independent. vCISO is a great way to be independent because they're an external entity. vCISO is great for small and medium businesses because it's flexible. You get only what you need. They'll work with you to make sure that it's inside your budget. Will keep costs from overrunning. You get a lot of expertise from these vCISOs. They're working with a lot of other companies. Great perspective from these people. Great optimization, get up to speed quickly. And really, it's going to be eye-opening for you. You have a business and you think, we're secure. We take it seriously. CISO's going to come in and say, oh, I see this, and this. Let's talk about this. I didn't even know. Wasn't on my radar. And that's good. That's how it's supposed to be.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the SureTech Podcast, The Three Hacketeers. If you found value in what you listened to today, please give us a like. Do follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. In the description, there will be a link tree that will take you to our social media pages, and you can keep up with us on your favorite social media platform. If you'd like to get in touch with us here at SureTech, please email us at info@sure-technologies.com, which is also in the description. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.